Hello and welcome to Stylish Chats with Creatives. Today on the podcast, I'm speaking to Marcus Wheeler. Marcus is a photographer based in Manchester, and we first met over social media, I believe. So over LinkedIn, maybe Instagram, something like that. And we've been trying to nail this conversation for a few months, but work's been busy, dad life, everything else. So welcome to the show.
Hello, thanks very much for having me finally. We've managed to get it in the books.
We finally got there after so many emails, so many reschedules.
I feel like that really sums up freelance life.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we were just talking before we press record as well. Sometimes you're on a shoot and then it's so balls to the wall. And then you think, I don't have the energy to do this because I've still got to get home, still got to do all of this, still got to sort my invoices out, sort the dog out, everything else.
And you don't want to sit and listen to me talk about myself for hours. What's wrong with you? Why wouldn't you want to do that?
I love listening to people, Marcus. I love it. Sometimes I just don't have the energy.
Yeah. Fair.
So, how did you become a photographer? Were you creative as a kid? Did you like photography as a kid? Tell me your story from little Marcus to now.
Yes. So I would say on paper, I don't think I ever really had a choice. So my mum and dad were both freelance creatives working in film and TV. So my dad, for about 45 years, was a prop buyer, set designer, prop master, all this stuff. My mum is like a seamstress by trade. So she did costumes for TV and film and museums and wedding dresses and all sorts of stuff like that. So growing up, I was literally had two great role models there to show that you could be self-employed and do creative stuff. And they were always doing interesting things, and I'd go along with them to jobs, especially my dad. If it was like his turn to look after me in the holidays and he was working on something local, or if it was on weekends and he had to do stuff, we'd get in his car, drive around, go to prop houses or go to random guys' houses to pick up a thing from someone he knew that they needed for a film or whatever. So there was a lot of treasure hunting and stuff like that. So, that was never really a choice. Like if I turn around and been like, Mum and Dad, I want to be an accountant, they'd probably be like, well, we'll support you in what you've chosen. But it was an interesting dynamic. And then my older brother works in music. He's like a successful musician and producer. And my sister was always in the performing arts and stuff as well. And I'm the youngest of three. So for me, it was just everyone was being creative constantly all the time around me. So it was very like nurturing in that aspect. When it comes to photography, I was always like creative as a kid. I was also, not to blow my own horn here, but I was quite academic at school and stuff. I think I found school very like easy, probably compared to a lot of other creative people that I know, in terms of when it came to like core subjects and stuff. I quite enjoyed most of those. I was good at maths and science and all that stuff, but I always knew realistically from a young age, I was like, the whole point of the education system is to set you up for jobs at the end of it. And I couldn't work in an office job. I've got too much energy. I'm too loud and annoying, and it just wouldn't be for me. I was like, I need to do something creative, but I never knew what that was going to be. And then growing up, like parallel to creative endeavors, I was always playing sports and being active and stuff like that. And I started skateboarding when I was about 11, and it was through skateboarding really, which I think a lot of other photographers and people that I know and people that I work with now, I met through skateboarding. They got into photography and video and stuff through skateboarding, because it was one of the only hobbies or like subcultures where a big part of it was media and creation. It was filming your own videos and taking your own pictures and making sponsor me tapes and stuff like that. So I took my dad's camera that he had lying around, and I took it down to the skate park and I'd take pictures. And this is just as like Facebook was starting to pop off, and everyone I was skating with and stuff were like, oh, these are really good. Can I use them for my Facebook pictures and stuff? I was like, yeah, of course. I wasn't the best skater. I was like the worst out of our group of friends, and that always ends up being who's filming or taking pictures and stuff. But luckily for me, it was something I really enjoyed. So I got into it. That's how I started learning how to shoot and how to edit and stuff. And it was like a huge world of inspiration and media, getting skate magazines and watching skate videos and stuff. So I started teaching myself how to edit video, things like that on like iMovie. This is maybe like 2008, 9, stuff like that.
Yeah,
And
I
then,
remember iMovie.
yeah,
Oh,
this is pre. There's no CapCut, none of that. This was like bog standard, waiting 15 minutes for like each MP4 file to load.
yeah.
Um, and then from there I finished school. Ironically, I did really well in my GCSEs, A's, A stars, and then I got a C in art because I didn't want to do any of the writing work to go with it. I just wanted to make stuff.
Yeah.
So that was my worst result. And then I told all my teachers when they were talking about colleges, I was like, oh, I'm going to Leeds College of Art. I've already applied. I've already got in. So straight from high school to art college, they all thought I was nuts. They were like, what are you doing? You're rubbish at it. It's your worst result. And I was like, no, it's just because I didn't try. Once I go there, I'll start trying. And I went to college, had a really good time. So like 16 to 18, straight to art college in Leeds. And they had dark rooms there. So you would do the course I did. It was kind of like a foundation course, but over 2 years. So you'd try a little bit of everything, see what you liked, what you were good at, what you were bad at. I was already into photography, but then I'd never shot film before. And then they gave us all film cameras and film, and they taught us how to develop it and how to do your own prints and this stuff. And I just fell in love with it. So then all my work through college, I would try and get as much photography in there as I could. And then when it came to leaving college, I applied to a bunch of unis, ended up going to Northumbria in Newcastle because they had really good dark rooms and I wanted to carry on doing it. And at that time, like all the other unis really had been scrapping dark rooms, cutting down on budgets for like media courses and stuff. And I was like, I don't know what I want to do. I want to go to uni. I like doing photography. I'm going to carry on with it. Didn't think I'd be a photographer when it came to work. At this point, I kind of thought I wanted to work in press, maybe in magazines and stuff like that. Maybe I wanted to do some graphic design. And then I got to uni, and then I became very disillusioned with the whole kind of creative education system when I got to uni. And I'll talk more about that. But I went, and it was just, am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, of course you are, yeah.
It was a fucking shit show. It was a nightmare. Northumbria Uni, it was the worst place on earth for me at the time. Personally, the tutors and the course and everything, it was basically the course I applied for. The course I applied for got scrapped like 3 weeks before I was supposed to start. So they said they'd merged the course I was supposed to do. It's called Modern Photographic Practice. They'd merged it with the fine art course. What they meant is they'd scrapped the course, fired the tutors, put everyone into fine art to fill the numbers because they already had a bigger budget for that. So I just did a fine art degree for 3 years. Just wanted to do photography. Every time tutors would argue with me saying you need to do other stuff that isn't just like pictures or video or whatever. And I was like, that's literally what I signed up to do. I'm paying loads of money to be here. I'm getting all this debt. And the course I wanted to do gone. But at that point, I'd already found housing and got in, and I was like set on going. So kind of in the scheme of things, I'm glad that I went and everything has worked out how it is because I'm very happy now. But at the time, those 3 years were like a total waste of time. I felt like the practical education side of it, when it came to careers and navigating the like freelance landscape and stuff like that, there was nothing. We got no teaching on that kind of stuff. The art side of the course was like fine. Newcastle is like a great place for a night out, but for me it wasn't like the right place to be, I don't think. And I left uni being like, okay, like I don't really care about any of this stuff anymore. Like I just want to get a job, make some money, do something, I'll figure it out. And then luckily, like maybe 6 months after I came home from uni, I bumped into an old friend from high school who was a couple of years older than me. We were in the gym and he was like, oh, what have you been up to? Where have you been? Talking about uni. He said, what did you do? I said, oh, I did photography. And he was like, oh, that's funny. I work at a big photography studio in the little town that we're both from. It was right across from where I'd been to high school. I never knew it existed. He was like, yeah, I work there. Do you want a job? And I was
Amazing.
I was like, yeah, please. That'd be great. He was like, cool. Can you come in for like a test? I was like, yeah, cool. So pulled a sickie at my retail job, went in the next day, did a little test, looked around the place, chatted to the boss, ended up working there for like 4.5 years, and then went freelance after that for like the last 3 and a bit.
Crikey.
Yeah,
That is
I can breathe now.
that is one hell of a journey. But I also, your story with regards to uni isn't unfamiliar. I'm hearing a lot of people did the same. So I'm slightly older than you, and when I went to go to uni, I wanted to do a printmaking course, and they did exactly the same and binned it off. And I just said to my parents, I was like, nope, I'll just go and work then. Fuck
Yeah,
it. I'm
I
not
wish
I'm
I.
not going. I'm not doing.
Yeah,
It was the amount. I was thinking about this. Creatives hold so much unseen, maybe so much is the wrong start to that sentence, but there's so much that creatives do within this world that is unseen, that people forget about, and
yeah,
we're not nurturing it properly. And it's going to take like our generation and a couple below to become uni lecturers and be like, hey, in the freelance world you need to do this, this and this. You need to learn Capture One, you need to do this, you need to. And there's a lot of people I think who got funneled into fine art, did the uni degree, came out and were like, oh, what am I supposed to do with this?
yeah,
Then went on to teach themselves
yeah.
as uni lecturers, but actually had no
Experience
practice.
in
Yeah,
the real world, I would say,
yeah.
like the working world. And I think this is something, so I've posted a few times on LinkedIn and socials and stuff, and I've been a bit too busy to kind of really follow up on it, but I really want to go and talk specifically to college and uni age kids about the actual real like prospective career paths you can take. Because when I was at uni, they would say like, oh, this is how you apply for funding if you want to put on a gallery show, or this maybe like this is how the best way to put your portfolio together if you want to work for galleries or museums or whatever. And there was nothing in there to be like, oh, so you're creative, but you don't think you want to be an artist, but are you the kind of creative person that's really organized and good at keeping track of everything and planning out your time? Maybe you'd be interested in production. Maybe you want to be involved in the process, but you don't necessarily want to create. You want to be part of the team and you can keep everything running and you understand the creative aspect. And that would really fit you. And by the way, if you're good at it, you can earn this much money in a day, this in a week, this in a month, this in a year. Or like, if you're, for instance, say like, well, I want to be a photographer. I think I want to be a photographer, but when it comes to work, like, how do I get into it? And then so many people, you kind of leave uni and you go into something else and kind of forget about it, or you're like, oh, I'll get a job and I'll do people's parties on the side. I'll maybe do weddings. I'll do this, like I'll try and meet people, but you could lose like 7 or 8 years. And in the zeitgeist of the creative world, that's everything. Like if you miss a whole generation of trends and styles and advances in technology and stuff like that, you're so far behind that if you finished uni at 21 and then by the time you're 31, you're just breaking into like a junior position for a big company or for a studio or whatever, realistically, by the time you're that age, probably you have certain expectations in life, especially monetarily, in terms of if you have kids or a partner or you want to buy a house or any of these things that a junior role just won't facilitate due to the way big companies kind of milk people in the industry. And it's like no one, from my experience and then speaking to students now, no one's really teaching people that stuff. Like even if I knew at 18 how many people are involved in a photo shoot for a big company to get it from conceptualization to being out in the real world and in all its different formats, you'd be a lot more optimistic and a lot more realistic with this is what I'm good at. This is who I should follow on socials. I want to do the kind of stuff they do and pick their brains and learn things, compared to me at 18 being like, well, I like taking pictures, but the only people who I know who are photographers either do weddings or they're like shooting cover of magazines. Like,
Yeah.
It just opens up so many possibilities and no one's doing that. And I'd love to share the little insight that I have with people. So if anyone's listening, who knows?
I'm with you though. I'm the same. Like I keep pestering Huddersfield Uni because their photography department's actually really good. Because also when I started my career, there wasn't really producers. This is something that's like come along in the last like decade. And so like if I'd have known about producers, maybe I'd have gone a bit more that route or gone a bit more in an art direction route, or I don't know, could have gone into a million different ways. The same really as you could have gone lots of different ways. But I do think it's important to pass knowledge on Obviously not to the point where you then lose income. There's a balance there. But definitely chatting to like younger people.
Yeah.
And seeing where their thoughts are and where they think they're going to go, because they're all spending so much money now on uni. It's like,
Oh yeah,
isn't
I
it
think
40
I'm in
grand or
like
something?
50 grand's worth of debt or something.
Oh, fuck me.
Yeah, for a course I didn't want to do in a place I didn't want to be. Like between the actual tuition costs, which is what, like 27 grand, and then student loan and stuff for 3 years, like that's a lot of money to have sat over you.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think that puts so much pressure on people as well to be like, that it makes you think like, oh no, like I have to love uni. Like you have to tell people I'm having a great time. Yeah, it's definitely all worth it. And then it's really hard for people to be like, no, it's crap. Or maybe I want to drop out. Maybe I don't like it. Maybe I want to do this or do that. And I had a point going into my third year where I was like, what's the point of me even finishing this? Like I could start working now, have way less debt and stuff. And then I spoke to my parents and things, and they were like, look, it's another year. You might turn things around. You might get some opportunities and meet people and stuff. And that didn't really happen. But at the same time, I think there's so much stigma attached to how much money it costs for that last part of your education, and the thought of quitting or dropping out or trying to not be in love with what you're doing and admit it was maybe a mistake is an incredibly expensive mistake. I'd say it's probably akin to getting a divorce or something, and like being like, things haven't worked out. Maybe I chose the wrong path to go down. It's now a very costly and expensive mistake, and there's stigma attached to it, and people will look at you differently. And at that age, no one, like when you're like 19, I mean, no one should be thinking about that amount of pressure put on the decisions that they've made at that point, especially when it comes to your finances, because then you think, oh, I'm screwed for the rest of my life. But
yeah, don't you think that that's partly down to society's expectations of what we should be doing at such a young age?
Yeah.
Because it then brings bigger feelings that maybe we don't know how to process, such as shame and maybe embarrassment, that at 19, even I'd argue going to college was such a stressful choice of where to go, what course, and then going like after like, oh, are you even going to use that? And you've spent, I don't know how much it was to go to college at the time. And I think there's a lot of big feelings there and a lot of expectation that you're then going to carry on in this career for 70 years and you're going to get the Rolex watch at the end of it because you work for the company from when you're 21 till you're dead. And like life isn't like that anymore.
Yeah.
So that's a very old school system, I think, personally.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And obviously I'm not involved in the education system now, so I don't know how many things are changing, but I'd imagine it takes a lot longer and a lot more people to be involved to change like a university can't remember the word now.
Prospectus?
Yeah, prospectus, that word, yeah. Than it does to put a post out on social media or something, which is like, a post on social media now could land you a job.
Yeah.
Whether it's a freelance job or a full-time job, and it could change your life. And it could be, for instance, someone who was like 18 now and they were thinking about going to uni to do photography. If they did some test shoots with their mates and they'd watch some YouTube videos and they had some ideas and they put out a good post and they tag a bunch of people in it and they send it to some people, someone they know who works somewhere or whatever, and they pass it on to someone, that could really easily get you an assisting job on something, or it could get you a full-time job working for a studio or for a big company or whatever, if it's like an entry-level job. And at that point, you're just happy to be getting paid. And that's how the system works. Like, they feed off each other. Big companies and studios need cheap workers. And in return, I would say like my 4.5-ish, whatever years working for a big commercial studio, I learned more in the first 6 months working there technically than I did in 5 years of photography education before it. And maybe for the first year of working there, how little I got paid was definitely worth the amount of experience I was getting. And then you quickly outgrow that experience. And then it's, again, you're very young, so you might not think, oh, well, now I'll leave this job and try and find a better one because I'm more qualified so I could get more. That's a whole different story. But that approach now, I would advise anyone personally who was in the same position I was in, that going to uni is fine if you want to do it and you're capable of going, especially like if your family have the means to be able for you to go and not accrue all the debt and stuff. Especially if you want to work in the arts and you go to London, or even now maybe to Manchester, and you meet the right movers and shakers, and you get your foot in the door and you get your name known to a lot of people, that will provide opportunities. But at the time, like for me, going to Newcastle was so pointless because there was so little going on there. It has its own little bubble of like stuff. There was a couple of galleries and things, but like for the world I wanted to be in, there was nothing there. And all the other unis I'd applied to, as a side note, were all in London. And look at that, I got into all of them. I picked between 5 unis, and I thought, like, I'm 18, I'm not ready to move to London on my own. But I've got a bunch of friends, which is the worst decision you can ever make. I've got loads of friends who are going to Newcastle. I'll just go there. I'll be friends with people I already know. I won't meet anyone new. I'll live with 6 lads from Huddersfield. That'll be a good idea. We'll go out all the time and trash our flat and all that stuff. And like, that's not how you get the most out of your experience career-wise, definitely. Speaking from experience. But like, if you have the means and you can go to these places and do all the right moves, sorry, it can definitely be worth it. But looking outwards in now, I would say to 99% of people, it wouldn't be worth it. And I think that's a conversation people don't want to have because the university industry makes so much money that it's like, I don't know.
And as creatives, we're supposed to break the rules, right? So I feel like I never went in the end. I did college. I actually got, I wouldn't say thrown out of the foundation course, but I got told that I was talking too much. And I got the question, do you really want to be here?
Yeah, I had a lot of those during my time at uni.
Yeah. A lot of like, you're disturbing people.
Yeah.
I mean, if they could see me now,
exactly,
having a podcast, chatting to people, I'm not sure. I'm not sure it'd be seen as a bad thing. But I do think we're supposed to break rules. And I feel like uni is such a traditional, white-collared way of working. And, you know, as you said earlier, going to school and things is to prep you to go to work. And it's the same with uni. It's that you're there to prep, unless you're going somewhere that has got exactly what you want or is kind of close to what you want to do. And it's just such a shame that you spent all that money and they just fucked it up for you.
But I mean, everything's worked out great now. Contrary to all the things I've been saying, I'm a very positive person and I have a lovely life now. I'm very thankful for. I'm a big believer that obviously all of these things have happened and worked the way they've worked to kind of put me where I am now and be in this position. And I think it gave me a lot of time. So I was talking, actually, I don't know if you know Becca Tesla. She's a
the
stylist.
name rings a bell.
She's like big time fashion stylist, amazing. I work with her quite a lot. And I was talking to her, we were driving down to Birmingham for a shoot, and I was talking to her about being kind of very self-aware and how I've always been very aware of who I am and how I think and why I do things. And I think uni gave me a big chunk of time where I wasn't necessarily happy. I was quite lost in what I was doing. And it gave me a lot of time to think about like who I am and how I approach things. And so I took from the whole experience some very valuable things that I think have really set me up now to be in this industry and to be able to be the best version of myself, kind of professionally and personally. It's not often that you kind of get a few years of your life where there isn't a crazy amount of pressure on you and you have a lot of free time to be able to like think and do things. So like, that's a positive that I could take from the experience. And I think I wouldn't be as good as I am in professional settings now or in my personal life or in relationships or anything if I'd not had that time to be able to assess who I am and the way I think and the way I act and kind of be able to consciously hone in on the things I was good at and try and assess some kind of more negative traits personality-wise to be able to understand other people better, which I think obviously you'll understand is like a huge part of being freelance, being able to get people and bounce off of people quickly and kind of read the room and know the kind of person you are and deal with the personality types that you'll encounter, because there's many different types and obviously not everyone is simpatico and there's a lot of bending to other people's will for a day to make things work. And I think the person who I was at 19, 20, 21 would have been a lot more combative to work with than the person I am now at 28, 29, 30. So those skills are invaluable, but don't need 50 grams worth of debt to know I should, listen to people and not talk constantly.
I think though as well that comes with age. So the older you get, the more you chill out with stuff, and you realize even though you're passionate about something, ultimately sometimes your opinion doesn't matter because it's not what you're getting paid for.
100%. I was thinking about this earlier, not to skip ahead too much in your questions, but I asked if there was any homework to do. And you'd said, no, I've just got some loose questions, kind of talk about things and what inspires you and stuff. And I was thinking of the concept of, like, am I inspired to do things? And then I was like, well, it depends on the job. Because sometimes you're inspired and sometimes you have input. And then a lot of the time, for me especially, it's like the term photographer is, I feel like there's kind of 2 or 3 separate brackets within it. There's like, sometimes you're a photographer, you are a creative, you have creative direction, you have input, you're a translator for people's ideas and you want to bring them to life visually, and you're there to see things that people can't see until it's on the screen and they look at it and they're like, yeah, that's exactly what I pictured. And then sometimes you're a camera operator and there's a very strict vision and they need exactly what they've already put together. And I'm just there because I know how to use the camera and capture one and how to put the lights up to make it look like what they want, which is totally fine. And sometimes they're the best days. You don't have to think. You can just chill out and you do the work and everyone's happy and you get paid. And I was like, those days, I'm not inspired to do anything. Sometimes I'm inspired by things or whatever. And then it's I don't know how best to describe it. There's like the peaks and troughs throughout your career. Like you said, things change with age and learning to understand people and situations and stuff. And I've learned as I get older that, like you said, sometimes your opinion, they haven't asked for your opinion. They've asked to utilize your capabilities to do things. And I think as photographers, even now, have worked with people before who get really frustrated by it, that they're like, my opinion on these things should matter, especially when it comes to if you're working as part of a big team or whatever. And there's a bit of a rock star attitude of like, I'm the one who's actually making the picture and blah, blah, blah. And as I've got older, I've just like, no one cares about anything I have to say or to do most of the time, whether I'm at home or I'm working or whatever. Like, but then I also think, like, if I was someone else, why would I care what me, Marcus, the person, has to say? So, like, just for instance, I deleted my Twitter account years ago because I used to post on Twitter constantly. And I was like, God, I'm hilarious. I'm so insightful. All these things really matter to people. I have 1,000 followers. Those people really care. And then one day I was like, who cares? I was like, I don't care about any of these opinions I'm seeing. No, I'm sure no one cares about mine. I'm sure I could be a lot more productive and I could get on with life. And essentially things like getting rid of that and stuff, I think has made me more creative as a person because I don't care about whether people care about what I'm doing. And I've learned to kind of do things for the sake of doing them because I want to, and if I am passionate about them, rather than seeking a validation of what I'm saying and doing and putting out there.
I think you've just described ultimate freedom.
Yeah, it's quite nice.
Yeah, because I think I came a bit late to that party. I think I came to that a couple of years ago, so I'm a bit older than you, and I think I came to it in my early 30s and was just like, what does it matter? What does it matter? Like, and I think the same as you, it makes people understand the true you a little bit more as well. If you're 100%. Just posting whatever you want on social media or, being who you are, people will be like, cool, that's who he is. That's cool.
I think that's kind of a perfect way to put it. Obviously, you're not hiding behind a guise of, this is what I'm putting out because I want people to acknowledge this and I want people to like me. And it's like, well, this is who I am. If you like me, you like me. If you don't, you don't. Which is, fine. And everyone prefers a genuine person to a fake person anyway. And I feel like in the creative industry, obviously there has to be a certain amount of fakery, whether it's, literally within images and work and stuff like that. You have to fake things constantly. and then figuratively you have to fake things to get along with people or to get things moving, or you have to yes and a lot and kind of work your way into situations. And eventually, especially if you've got like a great client, you work together for a long time, you kind of bleed more of yourself into the whole process and you become friends with people and stuff. And then eventually that usually tends to produce the best work. Like, I don't think anyone ever does their best work on the first shoot with a client, because everyone's like, I want to do the work that they like. And then the client's like, oh, well, I hope this goes well. Like, what's this person like? What are they doing? Are they doing it right? And then it's not until you have that good working flow where you can be yourself and be involved to a point where everyone's happy and put a little bit of your stamp on something, and you know what they're looking for and all these things, like that your true self comes out, and then that's translatable. I think especially for photographers, then that's translatable in your work, because like anyone can be like, this is my style, and you look and all their pictures have the same filter on them and you're like, okay, cool, like that's fine. But then I think putting personality over style into work is very hard, and that takes a long time. And that's probably something that, you know, I'm still working on. But I think that comes into that kind of true self being involved in work. And it takes a long time for that to come about.
Yeah, and I think it evolves as you evolve as well. Because I don't think I can sit here as 36-year-old Charlotte and say that I'm the same as I was at 26, because I really am not at all. I'm physically still the same person, but I don't think like mentally and, well, actually not physically, I've got way more tattoos. But I'm not the same person that I was at 26. And actually I'm probably a better businesswoman now than what I was when I was, 10 years ago, 11 years ago. But yeah, it's a funny one, isn't it? Because I think people don't talk about being their true selves, and there is a lot of fakery on sets, and there used to be like a very big hierarchy of the photographer's the king. You don't look at the photographer in the eye, you don't talk to him, a bit like a silverback gorilla. And now it's like everybody works very collaboratively, I found.
Yeah, 100%. I think obviously it's dependent kind of on certain shoots and stuff. Like, I do a lot of shoots at the moment where it'll be small companies, new companies, startup stuff, and it will literally just be the one person who runs their company, and they come and they bring all the product and they're like, here's the stuff, make it look good. And in that case, I'm doing creative direction and I'm production and I'm a photographer and I'm going to be post-production and all these things. And then it's kind of, you're trying to build a rapport with the client while you're trying to juggle all these jobs. But then you spend, say it's a week of your life, say you spend 2 days shooting and 4 days editing everything, and you're constantly going back and forth. How does this look? Is this okay? Whatever. It's like in that process of wearing many hats, I think that's helped me to be better placed to understand how everyone else is feeling on shoots. And having done it for like 7 or 8 years kind of in the industry now, and have been at every level and seen all the different job roles and stuff, I feel like everyone's got to a point now where I think that kind of idea of like a hierarchy system like that, everyone knows just wastes time, which ultimately wastes budget, which at this point no one has to waste. So it's like, for me personally, especially if I go into work with people who've already worked together, so you go to shoot for a brand and they're using a stylist that they like to use, and they're using maybe a model that they've shot before, and I'm the new piece that's coming into the system. There's never any like, right, you're at the top, we're here to help you, whatever, blah, blah, blah. It's kind of like, this is our system. We need you to click into it. We're already operating. Like, we've seen the work that you do and we like that. We want you to bring that into our system, but this is how we do things. And I don't know whether it's just my personality type, and I'm quite like a people pleaser. I'm quite malleable. I'll happily change the way I do things or operate or whatever to suit other people, like on a shoot day. Whereas some people are a bit more diva-y and they have certain requirements and stuff and they need people to move around them. But like, one of my favourite things now is the collaborative nature of things, and there's no better feeling than getting to the end of a big shoot and doing that last shot and being like, right, it's a wrap. And then everyone lets their shoulders down, there's a big sign, it's done. And you've all feel like you've made it through something. And it's like, you make those, I call them like 2-day friends. Like, yeah. You go, you work with people, and from like from the start of the first day to like the end of the last day, you've become best friends. You've been through it all, and then you might only work with them a couple of times a year, but you keep up with each other's socials and see what you're up to and stuff. And it's like it's nowhere near the extent of like trauma bonding, unless it's really horrible. But you have that shared need to get through the system and the pressure that's on you, and then when you see the work go live and stuff, and then it's like you can all be proud of it and share it together, and that's one of the best parts of it. So I can't imagine being like, right, everybody quiet while I shoot and let me do my thing, and it's all about what I'm doing. It's gross. It's like grow up.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. On the point of shooting, what has been your favourite shoot to date?
Ooh, very tricky. I don't know. There's a couple of shoots that stand out. I don't know about favourite. Favourite in terms of like the actual work that's been produced, or like the favourite experience and stuff. It's like, for me, so it's about 13 months ago, so back end of 2022, I did my first ever proper kind of completely solo, like big campaign shoot for a company, and it was super last minute. I think they had someone booked to do it and they couldn't do it, and basically I'd shot some still life kind of creative images of some shoes for a retailer, and I posted it on my Instagram, and I tagged the footwear company in it, and they'd seen it, and they were like, we love the shot, really cool. Do you mind if we use it on our socials, whatever? And I was like, yeah, go for it. They used the picture. A few months later, get a message from them. This is maybe 4 months later, not really spoke to them. And they were like, oh, hi, just checking, do you work for said retailer or are you freelance? I was like, I'm freelance, why? Thinking, they want some more like still life stuff doing. And they were like, this was on a Friday. And they were like, any chance you could be in Shoreditch in London on Monday at 9 a.m. to shoot a campaign? And at this point, I'd done years of working in a studio. I'd been freelance for like about 18 months, but I'd mainly been doing kind of studio cover, still life, product stuff, like e-com model shoot, stuff like that. Nothing like big location campaigns. I'd never really done any of that. I'd assisted on a few and things, but like I'd never had the opportunity to do it. And they were just like, could you do it? And I was just like, yeah, of course, definitely, totally fine. I've done loads of them. What are you on about? It's fine. Like, think about it. And I was there just like, I turned around to my missus. I was like, oh my God, this is going to be like the biggest shoot of my career. Like, I need to nail this, blah, blah, blah. We had a really young baby at the time. And she was like, amazing, right? I'll sort the baby out all night. You get a good night's sleep. Because I had to get up at like 5 to get a train at 6 to get down there and stuff. And I went and I did the shoot. And I was bricking it going into it, obviously, because there's always a thought of like, what if my camera stops working? What if my tether cable stops? What if I shoot stuff to a card and it comes out, something's out of focus on like a shot they like, blah, 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 and all these things. And then I got there and the day went so smooth and everyone was so nice and the images were amazing, and they're still some of my favourite images that I've shot. And it was like everything just came together. It was such a big leap from where I'd been at to where I wanted to be. And it was kind of doing that shoot and seeing the final images, getting the feedback from the clients that they were really, really happy with it. They were like, it was more than what they'd expected, basically, which is kind of like the best thing you could ask for when you're giving someone the work from a shoot. They were like, these are unbelievable. We're so happy with them. And then like I put stuff out on my socials, got a really good reception. Like it was really nice to put something out there to be like, I've done this work for this big brand. They're really happy with it. I did this, obviously not all by myself. There's other people on the shoot, the models and the stylists and stuff. But like, I did this as a freelancer, just me. Like, it was kind of like, right, I've put on my big boy pants. Here I am.
Yeah.
And then from there, luckily over the last like 13 months, that same client, we've done like 15, 16 shoots together. I've got a really good relationship with them. They're like, some of the people they're like genuine friends now. And like, that gave me a really big springboard to go off of. It was like one lucky chance encounter that I'd kind of managed to generate myself by tagging these guys in one picture and they liked it. And then from there, just riding that. And then without that one shoot, I don't think I've done anything I've done over like the last year, and loads of crazy opportunities and stuff. So I'd say that's probably my favourite in terms of the feeling that I got out of it.
Yeah.
And I'll probably always be chasing the dragon now a little bit, being like, oh, that was so good. I hope the rest of them are like this. But I guess until there's like a springboard to another level, maybe. But
yeah, and it just goes to show that chance that you just tag them. And social media is so, I don't know about you, I get a bit of work off my social media as well. And it's such an easy place to put your portfolio up and so accessible for everybody that why not just, tag people in it, see what happens.
well, I'm a huge believer in just like, I'm not a huge fan of the word manifesting, but I'm like, in reality, if you want things, like, unless you're already a big name, they're not going to come to you. So like if you are starting a journey at anything, so for instance, like as like a creative, like do test shoots or shoot products for brands that you like, whatever, and tag them in it and show people what you can do. And then I think if the work is actually good enough and it makes people look at it and think, oh wow, that's really good, then that's the quickest way to get your name in the hat for stuff. Because it's like, you can send people emails, you can cold call, you can do whatever you want. But like when it comes to visual medium, if you just put stuff out into the universe and try and guide it to the people who are supposed to see it, who are in the right positions, that's the most effective way. Like there's never been an age before where you can get in front of the head of production for Nike or whatever. But like now you can go on LinkedIn and you can find who that person is and you can tag them in posts on LinkedIn and hope that they see it. I'm sure there's going to be thousands of other people who do the same thing. But if your work's good and you believe in it and it happens to be what they want at the time, like if you don't seize the opportunity, then can't blame anyone but yourself for letting that slip.
Yeah, I agree with you. So talking about your freelance career, how did you become freelance and what was your choice behind it? Because you said you worked for a studio for like 4.5, 5 years. Did you just think one day I'm going to go for it, put my big boy pants on and just go for it and left the door? Or what was your choice in doing it?
Yeah, so this is quite funny, I think. So I'd worked for this studio for a long time and initially, so I would like to preface this by saying I have no ill will towards the studio. Great people. I met some of my best friends working there. Got a great kind of education in commercial photography. But the business itself had a few like ups and downs and through COVID and all this stuff. And eventually, with any job, kind of it ends up not being the right place to be anymore. And for me as well, so tangentially to doing photography, I was becoming a bit disillusioned with the photography work. So I worked at this studio for a long time and I was just shooting the same stuff for years. And I felt like I'd plateaued. I wasn't learning anything anymore. And then the main manager that we'd had who taught me so much and I owe so much to, if you listen to this guy called Julian, who I used to work with, he was like my photography dad. He like taught me everything. He was amazing. Such a good guy. He, during some like ups and downs of COVID and everything, he'd left the business and he was who used to kind of make sure that we got opportunities to do stuff and teach us things and all this stuff. So he'd gone and then it was kind of, everything was a bit up in the air. And then one day I was shooting, well, it wasn't one day, for a week I was shooting planks of wood. So it was for a flooring company and I'd done like all these overhead shots of like interlocked planks of wood. And then I was doing cutouts of them on a table one by one. There was like 500 colours, just one plank of wood on a white table. And I was shooting these for like 2 days. And I was listening to a podcast by a guy called Lewis Morgan, who was one of the guys who founded Gymshark. He had a podcast at the time talking kind of like about business stuff and speaking to like founders of businesses and all these things. And I was running another business on the side. So in lockdown, I started selling retro and like rare football boots.
Yeah.
So huge football fan, love football boots, love shoes and stuff. In lockdown, I'd start buying stuff on eBay, cleaning it up, selling it, like taking nice pictures of everything. And that had blown up. And that got to the point where I was turning over 2-3 times as much money doing that as I was earning at this studio. And I was listening to this podcast and they were basically talking about like the best piece of advice we could give any young business owner is like, if your business is making money and it's doing well, like commit to it 100%. And with everything that had been going on, I was like, right. And I just texted my boss. I was like, could you come in here? I was in like a little side room and he came in. I was like, I quit. I was like, I can't do it. I was like, it's not the right fit anymore. I can't give you 100% of my attention because I'm running this business as well. Because he knew about that. And he'd spoken to me about it and been like, look, like I know you've got another business as well. Like, I need you to be switched on and committed to doing this, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I can't do that. I need to leave. I think it's the right time. And he totally understood. So I left with the initial thought of I'll do bits of freelance work that help pay the bills and I'll grow my other business. Mm-hmm. And then, so fast forward, I think it's maybe like 16 months from there. My girlfriend was... So my girlfriend had given birth. So this may be 2 years on. We have a really small baby. I've been running the business all this time. It was doing really well, but I was very stretched. And over this time, I'd picked up more and more freelance work. And it was like, it was paying good money and I was trying to save up for the baby and all this stuff. And it got to the point where the business was too big to manage on my own. But I couldn't really hire someone else to help or anything. Our spare room in the flat, that was going to be the baby's room, had hundreds of pairs of football boots in it. I was like, I loved it. Like, I loved doing it. I had a YouTube channel to go with it. I loved making all the content. I had like, I think it was maybe like 27,000 followers on the Instagram page, and I'd do loads of interactive stuff. It was a big part of who I was running that business. But at the same time, once the baby had come, I was like, I need to kind of, I'd been freelancing, but just dribs and drabs here and there. So it was like covering other studios when they were busy or doing like little things for businesses, whatever, nothing like crazy. And then I got to the point where I was like, I need to sack one of these things off, because I was like, I can't be fully committed to being a dad and a photographer and running a business and trying not to die at the same time.
Yeah.
And I was like, look, the boots business, like, I don't want to do all the businessy side of it. That's boring. I can sell all the stock I've got. I can sell the business, do that, and then I can just carry on with the freelance work that I'm doing. And I did that. And basically, as soon as I'd stopped doing my other business and really committed to freelancing, it was maybe, I want to say like a month or two after that is when I did that shoot for the footwear company.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, no, yeah, this is what I want to do. This is what really like lit a fire under me. And I was like, no, this is like what I should be doing and being really committed. So I'd been freelance at that point. I don't know how my timeline works out here, but I'd been freelance maybe like, I don't know, somewhere between 18 months and 2 years. And then a few months down the line, do that big shoot. And then the kind of 13, 14 months since then is like everything's kind of taken a big upward acceleration because I've been able to kind of commit to it as my only thing. So it's it's been a interesting ride. And just the last thing to interject. So Lewis Morgan, whose podcast I was listening to, when I decided to quit my job, I recently started shooting for his new company now, shooting all their stuff. And I haven't had a chance to meet him yet. But as soon as I get to meet him, I'm going to be like, hi, I wouldn't be here if I'd never listened to your podcast.
Yeah.
He literally told me to quit my job. So.
Yeah, do it. Because I think people like that love to hear that they've helped inspire somebody else.
Yeah, definitely.
It's always quite nice to hear. And on the point of being self-employed as well, how the hell do you balance being a parent and being self-employed? Because
it's tricky. It's very tricky. I'm in a very lucky position. So me and my partner, we live in central Manchester. She is a fourth year medical student at the moment. She's had a crazier life than me. She used to be a professional dancer, worked all over the world. She danced at the Moulin Rouge in Paris, done all this stuff, and then was like, right, I quit, I retire, I want to be a doctor. And then 3 years into, so she'd finished her third year medical school and then popped out a baby, took a year out and has gone back now and is halfway through the fourth year, then got a fifth year to do, yeah. But so it meant that first year she could take a year out. So the year that I was working, so basically last year, most of last year up until September, she was able to look after the baby quite a lot whenever I was away shooting and stuff like that. And whenever I wasn't shooting, I'd be at home helping with the baby. And then her parents live like about half an hour away, and her sister lives in the same building we do, but the floor above us.
Oh, cool.
So she can help out. So we've got loads of like family that can help. and now it's a juggling act between a couple of days at nursery. I try and take Wednesdays off so I can look after my son all day on Wednesdays, and we can do stuff. Thursdays he'll go over to his grandma and granddad's, so they're like half an hour away. So he'll go there, stay over on a Thursday night, come back on a Friday, like afternoon, and then by the end of Friday afternoon, hopefully we can kind of box off whatever we're doing and we can have weekends to be able to do stuff. So it's a big kind of juggling act. But obviously, things change all the time. If I get booked on a Wednesday or I'm away for a few days, stuff, we just scrape it together and desperately try and make it work.
Yeah, it's nice to hear a different point of view, because I think a lot of women talk about how life is different with kids, and I don't think you hear about it from a male's point of view as often, because I think traditionally, going back to the traditional kind of workspace, men would bugger off to work, be in their white collar job till they got the Rolex, and the women would be at home being like homemakers. So does your partner do like odd shifts as well? Does she have to do nights and stuff?
No, so at the moment she's pretty much in hospital like 9 to 5 Monday to Friday, like kind of on the job training, and then she has exams coming up and all that kind of stuff. So next year she will have some bits where she has to do night shifts and stuff like that, and that will kind of all move around. And then once she's actually working, it depends what she does, if she's a GP or if she's in A&E or whatever, and we'll just kind of figure it out at the time. But yeah, for now it's kind of 9 to 5 Monday to Friday, which is obviously what the system is built around for most people in terms of childcare and stuff. So like that kind of works. But to go back to what you were saying about, usually you'd have the baby and go straight back to work. One thing for me that happened was, so I was super busy up until the baby was born. And then I was like, right, I want to take like a month off. I was like, I want to take like 3-4 weeks off, just be at home, be completely involved, do everything. And that worked. And then I went back to work for like a couple of weeks for a client. And then after that, so all my work just disappeared. I literally, so this is the start of 2023. I think January, February, halfway into March, like the little dry spell up until the start of the new tax year. I was like, because I'd never really been 100% committed to freelancing. I was always running my other business as well. I hadn't noticed that period had ever been quiet for me, because I was always doing other stuff. So suddenly I was like, oh, what's going on? I have no work. Like, I'm desperate for work. And at this point, like, the money I'd saved up was starting to run out. So like tension's getting a bit high. And I was like, what is going on? And then at that point, I luckily managed to kind of spin it to be like, look, it means I get to spend more time at home with my teeny tiny little baby at the time. Like, so many dads don't get the opportunity to be there for like the first 3-4 months of their baby's life. Well, at this point, it was maybe like 6-7 months coming up to somewhat like, I should probably know the timings, but like he was a bit older than that. And I was like, things could be so much worse, because I was really catching myself in the perpetual loop of freelance life of like, I'm too busy, I don't have any work. I'm too busy, I don't have any work. And it was like taking a step back and learning to enjoy the present moment that I was in and being like, this is an incredible opportunity that so many dads don't get. And I was like, there will always be an opportunity to make more money, but like, you will never get this opportunity again to be around 24/7 for like the first, like these really formative months, and to be so hands-on and involved. And I'm so lucky that I got that opportunity. And yes, I did have to sell a lot of trainers and clothes and stuff that I owned that I really liked to pay the bills and survive and stuff. But like, I think that period really taught me that I was like, it's fine, I can make it through anything. There are positives. And I think the biggest shift as a professional, so as being self-employed and being a dad, and I don't know whether it is like a hormonal thing or what, but as soon as I found out my partner was pregnant, and then as soon as she gave birth, and it all became very real, I've had this like very intense drive to provide and to work and to earn and to do all of these things to be able to like make sure that he'll have the best life possible and all these things. And I've always been a person who's very chilled and relaxed, no sense of urgency whatsoever, which is infuriating for my partner now. But at the same time, it definitely unlocked a part of me when it comes to work that I'd never had before. And it was like, if I'm going to do something, I really need to do it because my time is so limited. My time is valuable. So like before I would say yes to like little jobs that didn't really pay a lot or whatever. I do things for free and stuff. And then it made me straight away, it was like a switch flipped. I was like, no, I'm not doing it. I was like, my time is worth more than this. My skills are worth more than this. I was like, you're not just paying for me, you're paying for me to take time away from my son. And like that needs to be worth it. And I think that triggered a part of me that was like, I deserve more than where I'm at now. And to kind of believe in myself more and approach bigger clients and go for opportunities more and quote people higher and things. And then these things end up paying off if you have the self-belief to make them come to fruition. So I feel like that was like a big shift that I saw in myself. And I feel like it's paid off. And that's, I don't think that's something that will ever go away, is that kind of feeling of how valuable time is, because it's, because I had that time where I was really quiet. I could have I was at one point I was so desperate. I could have been like, I'll do anything, I'll take whatever, just pay me. Yeah, I just need money. But then for it to actually have the flip reverse effect and be like, no, time is worth so much more than money. So if you want my time, you have to pay me more to not be with my child. And then in turn, that confidence, or however it would be perceived, I think has been beneficial in terms of approaching clients and stuff. And then, because once you get like a couple of good shoots under your belt with decent clients, and then other people see it, and then it's like you start to get your name out there and stuff, and things pick up traction. Like that might never have happened if I'd never had a kid and I'd never suddenly been like, no, like I think I'm at this level. So hopefully it's kind of all happened for a reason.
Yeah, and I think you're right with sometimes you've got to flip the script, because I think we had a chat when I felt very similar in October time where work just disappeared off a fucking cliff.
Yeah.
I was like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Pressure of like, got to pay our mortgage is going up. How are we going to do this? How are we going to do this? The pressure that my husband took on because he took overtime, and you know, you come through it the other side, but it still doesn't stop you panicking, or you know. And then sometimes actually for someone else to say to you, do you know what, you get through it, you need to flip it and just be like, oh, I can have some space to breathe and sort myself out. And like I spent that time a bit, maybe I relaxed quite a bit, but I also like ended up scheduling social media and making more of a presence for online presence for myself, my work and things. And I think it's changing, like you say, it's changing the way you look at things. And probably for you, having Littlin is a massive driving force, because now you are responsible for that little person. He's got to have roof over his head, food in his belly, everything else.
I was so irresponsible before that. I was just, no, I'm not like a party person or anything, but just terrible with money, no sense of urgency, very laissez-faire attitude toward like life in general. Just things happen when they happen. Now I'm like, no, I should probably do things now, like actually make things happen. And I feel like they don't teach you that in education. That it's like you should probably have a proactive attitude towards trying to actually accomplish things. That would have been a good lesson to learn like 10 years prior, I think.
But you probably wouldn't have been ready for it.
No, that's true. I probably would have been like, oh, yeah, I'll do that at some point.
Yeah, I'll get round to it. Yeah. I know you touched on this before as well, but this is a question I do like to ask guests near the end of our chat. And it's what inspires you? Now, you can go for work, you can go for life, creativity. I've had a multitude of answers, and I quite like where this throws people, which angle they go to. So what inspires you, Marcus?
So, yeah, I did, when you mentioned this to me, I did some thinking, and I hope I don't come across as too much of an existential weirdo in answering this. But for me, the idea of kind of inspiration is on like many different levels. So whether it's life or work or, you know, everything combined, I don't think I could think about what inspires me without talking about fear. And I think fear isn't necessarily a negative thing. For me, like I said before, I've always been very aware of who I am and what makes me do things. And I think there are people who do things because of compulsion, and they don't know why they do things. And they're just like, oh, that's just me, it's what I'm like. And they can't explain why they act a certain way or whatever. Whereas I've always been quite measured and very aware of why I do things. So when it comes to the idea of inspiration, whether it's life or work or anything, I think for me, I have a crippling, debilitating fear of letting anyone down. And especially when that comes to myself, and I feel like, not in a crazy way, I don't think I'm the Messiah, but I've always felt like everyone is destined to do something with their life. And I don't think I'm a background character person. And I was like, there's a reason that we're here. There are lessons to be learned as people. I think the whole point of being alive is to go through things and learn lessons and teach other people, and, as hippy dippy as it sounds, like, learn to love and be loved and all these things. That's the human experience. And then to kind of shrink that down to what applies to work and things, I think I've always not been able to escape the way I see the world. I'm a very visual person, whether it comes to not that you can tell in my Buffy the Vampire Slayer top, but the way I dress, the way I do things, whether it's a haircut or tattoos or all these things, is like a huge part of who I am as a person is driven by the things I see and the way I frame things. And it's like, whether that's being brought up in a house that was people working in film and TV and always watching amazing films and shows and stuff as a kid, and like seeing scenes in films and shows and stuff and be like, that looks really cool. Like, I can feel the atmosphere. Like, there's atmosphere to things. And then as I grow up, I'd be like, I look at this site I see on the street, that would make a great picture. Like, the way my brain works has always been the way I see things, and kind of freezing moments in time in my brain, as if, like, this is how this is supposed to look right now, and it's someone's job to capture this and portray it and attach it to an emotion and give that to people. Because not everyone is a visual person, not everyone is a creative person, but a lot of people appreciate those things. So I feel like if you're given the ability to see things and be able to articulate visual language, if you can translate people's ideas into something that is good to look at and that people enjoy and can in any way benefit people's lives, whether it's making a business owner more money, or whether it's creating a film or a picture that people like, they want to hang on their walls, or whatever it is, if you can do something that evokes emotions in people, I feel like you should use the ability that you have to its fullest potential, because you never know how many lives it's going to impact or in what way it could help other people. And I think we were put on earth to help people and to do all these things, and it would be the most criminal thing I can think of for anyone who has vision and ability to do these things to not do it and not base their life around it. I think in a way it would kind of almost be selfish to not share with other people what I feel like you've been put there to do. And some people will do it on a small scale. That'd probably be me, like in the microcosm of everything. I might make some adverts for some companies that people see, and they might buy some shoes or whatever. And that would be, that's great for me. If it provides a good life for me and my family, that's perfect. And some people will do it on a huge scale, and they will change the face of the earth with their gifts and change the way people think. But I think we should all do as much as we can to give back. Because we were talking before the podcast about how some big clients that you work for might not be the most ethical, and how consumerism kind of can take away bits of good from the world and put people in bad situations. But if you can use the abilities that you have to do some good, to try and balance that out karmically on the grand scale of things, I think that is the least that I could do. So the fear that I have to not live up to whatever potential I have and not do as much as I can to try and give back and help people and create things. Like, if I just ended up in an office job and being an accountant, I'm sure I could have helped people in some ways avoid paying tax or whatever. But like, I don't think that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to do whatever I'm here to do, and I'm just chasing that constantly in a pursuit to try and provide for my family and live a good life, and hopefully try and help some other people along the way.
I think that is such a good answer. I was like nodding in agreement to you, because I think sometimes we forget that as creatives, we are storytellers.
Yeah.
And it comes in, I'm sorry if you can hear my dog, she's having a dream. It comes off in different ways, and we can all visually to create. A lot of creatives I know are visual people as well, the same as you. And there's ways that we can show our emotion. And I just think that's such a lovely answer. That's such a lovely answer.
Thanks. I tried to think about it. And then, yeah, it's kind of, I don't know, it's easy to be like, oh, well, I love shoes and I love clothes, so I want to work with them, which is true. But at the same time, whatever I ended up doing, I feel like innately, I think a big part of being a creative person is the creative things that we do as well, or everything that we do kind of at a human level, until you kind of reach a point, like we said earlier, that you don't care. You start off doing things to seek approval from people, to be like, that's good, well done. And then as we realise we're good at it, we realise maybe I don't need that approval, but I can use the skills I have to do other things. And there's a huge part of me that obviously will seek approval from other people forever. Like, I want everyone to like me and think that I'm hilarious and all these things. And it's like, that will never go away. But if I can hopefully use whatever talent I may or may not have, and however I see things, to hopefully, give back to people and help in the grand scheme of things, that's like the best possible situation. Yeah,
I agree. And on that note, I am going to say thank you so much for coming on today. I've really enjoyed our chat.
Thanks for letting me ramble. It's nice to talk.
It's nice to hear other people's journeys and other people's thoughts, being in the same industry. And it's so nice to hear somebody I'm like what some people would say balls deep into my freelance journey. I'm heading for my 13th year, I think. Nice. And you're at your beginning, and it's nice to hear and exchange stories about the freelance world and about the photography world. So I really appreciate your time. So thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, I appreciate it so much. Thank you so much. Hope, people can listen to this and think I didn't waste an hour of my life. You know what I mean? Hopefully there was something valuable in there. But if not, I just really appreciate the opportunity. It was so nice to speak to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Please rate, follow and share, as it really helps this little podcast out. And if you have found value in the podcast and you have the means to, I do have a Buy Me a Coffee link in the show notes. This will help keep the podcast going. Join me next week for another fantastic guest. Bye!